You know something is different when forecasters are digging up 40-year-old records for weather event they thought they'd never, ever see again. But what we're looking at here, this isn't just another winter storm. It's something way more complex and frankly more concerning. A systemic atmospheric collapse.
I mean, let's just start with this quote from the source material because it really sets the stage. When scientists stop using words like weather or storm and start throwing around phrases like systemic collapse, that's when you know we've stepped into uncharted territory. It means that multiple, fundamental parts of our atmospheric machine are all breaking down at once, in a coordinated way.
And while everybody's cameras are pointed at the feet of snow piling up, the real, true danger here is almost invisible. Look, snow is a headache for sure. It's a logistical problem. But ice is a whole different beast. It is the silent killer. It doesn't just cover things, it clings to them, it builds layer upon layer, and it brings down the very power lines, the bridges, the whole infrastructure our world runs on.
Okay, so first up, let's really break down what makes this threat so unprecedented.
You see, in the world of meteorology, there's this benchmark for extreme generational cold, the historic freeze of 1985. It was this almost mythical deep freeze that experts pretty much never expected to see again in our lifetime. And yet, the patterns developing right now are forcing them to pull out those old, dusty charts and ask a terrifying question. Is history about to be surpassed?
Now, a number like this, minus 45 degrees Fahrenheit, that's not just a temperature reading. It's a structural signal. We are seeing temperatures 40 to 45 degrees below average. When you get that far outside the normal operating range, all the systems we've built for a typical winter, they get pushed right past their breaking point.
And here's a massive red flag that the forecasters are seeing. Normally, as a storm gets closer, the computer models start to agree with each other. They converge on a single forecast. But with this event, the opposite is happening. They're diverging. The uncertainty is actually increasing the closer we get. That tells us the atmosphere is in a highly sensitive, totally unpredictable state. It's dealing with something it has never seen before.
So what are the mechanics behind this chaos? Let's pop the hood and break down the 3 unique ingredients that are coming together to create this absolute perfect storm.
Right, so it's not just one thing. This is a collision of 3 incredibly powerful forces. You've got a fragmented vortex that's acting like an engine for extreme cold, and an atmospheric river supplying the fuel for ice, and then a cold air dam that's creating the perfect trap.
First, let's talk about the fuel. It's something called an atmospheric river. The best way to think about it is like a fire hose of moisture that's being siphoned all the way from the tropics. And in this case, that fire hose is being aimed directly at the super chilled Arctic air, providing a literally endless supply of ammunition to create ice.
Next up is the engine of cold. The polar vortex hasn't just sagged south like it normally does. It is fractured. It's shattered into pieces. So you have to think of it less like a single punch and more like a sustained, multi-pronged assault. Each one of these lobes is acting like its own pump, just relentlessly driving wave after wave of Arctic air southward.
And finally, the trap. The Appalachian Mountains themselves are playing a role here. They're acting like a giant wall or a dam that traps all that heavy, dense, cold air against their eastern slopes. This creates a kind of thermal prison right at the surface, and it ensures that any rain falling from the warmer layers above is going to freeze instantly, on contact, for a very, very long time.
Okay, now we get to what is maybe the most disturbing part of this whole phenomenon, the recharge mystery. See, normally, a cold blast like this comes through, does its damage, and then fades. This one is reloading.
And that is the central, deeply unnerving question that meteorologists are all grappling with right now. An Arctic outbreak should be a finite resource. It's supposed to spend itself, to exhaust its energy. So why isn't this one?
The source material uses this really powerful metaphor to describe what's happening, a pendulum. But here's the crazy part. Instead of the pendulum swinging from extreme cold back to normal, the atmosphere is just swinging between extreme cold and slightly less extreme cold. It never actually gets a chance to recover.
So it all comes down to this incredible recharge mechanism. The source of all that cold up over Canada is basically replenishing itself at an unprecedented rate. Before one blast of Arctic air even finishes its push south, another one is already locked and loaded right behind it. And what that does is it transforms a simple storm into a prolonged, brutal siege.
So finally, let's just zoom all the way out.
Does an event like this signal that we're entering a fundamentally new era of instability for our climate?
This timeline, well, it reveals a pretty disturbing pattern. These once-in-a-generation events are happening a lot more frequently. The benchmark used to be 1985. Then 2014 came along and gave us a new, modern reference point. And now, here we are, looking at another major escalation. The time between these historic events is shrinking, and it's shrinking fast.
And this quote right here, this gets to the very heart of the paradox. How can we possibly be having this kind of extreme cold in a warming world? Well, the source suggests that the key isn't the average temperature, it's volatility. When you add this much extra energy to the atmosphere, you don't just warm it up, you make the entire system more chaotic, more prone to these wild, violent swings in both directions. And so, that's where we'll end it, with this final question. When events that were once considered total anomalies, total flukes, start happening with this kind of regularity, you really have to ask, are we just observing a freak storm anymore? Or are we witnessing the creation of a dangerous and totally unpredictable new normal?